I'm Jean Lebel, and I'm the president of the International Development Research Center here in Ottawa, Canada. And I'd like to offer you a very warm welcome to what is the first ever IDRC Google Hangout, and it's my first personal Hangout also. It's my privilege today to host Thierry Zomahoun and chat with him about the African Initiative on Mathematical Sciences, which is also known under the acronym of AIMS. IDRC is proud to support this remarkable initiative, which is harnessing Africa's potential in applied mathematics and problem solving. Thierry and I will be happy to respond to your questions and comments in the second part of this half-hour chat. Please feel free to join the conversation using the Twitter hashtag IDRC Hangout, and I see already some people sending to our attention question. Good afternoon, Thierry.
Good afternoon, Jean. Happy to be with you again.
Thank you.
And greetings from Chicago.
Great. I hope that it's as cold as in Ottawa.
Yes, it is.
Our chat today is taking place, Thierry, as you know, as part of Canada International Development Week. This week event is held across the country and to the cyberspace with you that are listening to us. It has been organized for the last 25 years by our Department of Foreign Affairs, Trade and Development, and we are delighted to be part of that family at IDRC and to take part to this event. This year's thematic is We Are Making a Difference, and we bring to Canadian, here, abroad, as well as other people around the planet, some story that have made a difference in the life and livelihood of people in the field. IDRC is an organization that supports researchers from Canada and developing world as they work to solve problems, some of the toughest development challenges, and where we are focusing our attention on food security, maternal, newborn child health, youth employment, as well as science and technology. Talking of science and technology, we all know that mathematics, physics are the backbone of modern society, and the African Initiative on Mathematical Sciences is an inspiring example of what this support can achieve. Canada was the first major donor to fund AIMS. It was an effort that totaled $20 million and that has been used not only to build 5 centers and help the development of 5 centers in Africa, but also to raise an additional $70 million from various sources, including $29 million from our friends at the UK government with the Department of International Development. AIM was the idea of Neil Turok, professor and director of the Perimeter Institute in Waterloo. He said to me that he looked for 2 years in order to find a director for his initiative, and after 2 years he met with Thierry Zomahoun. 2 years and 35 people he interviewed, and he knew right there that he was the right person to become the president and the CEO of the AIMS group. Thierry is a good friend of IDRC. He's a personal friend also of me. He is the director of the Next Einstein Initiative, and we were going to have a good afternoon with him and a good conversation. Thierry, again, a warm welcome. And let's tell our audience what is AIMS and into which context AIMS was created in Africa.
I'm happy to be with you and with our friends online now, Jean, from Chicago. AIMS was founded more than a decade ago, as you mentioned, by one of the world's leading cosmologists, Professor Neil Turok, with a few friends and leading academic institutions. The AIMS Next Einstein Initiative was established to tackle Africa's grand challenges in scientific training and research. For the past decade, AIMS has successfully trained young, brilliant people in mathematical sciences to solve Africa's problem. We are currently working in 5 countries, as you rightly indicated. We got support from the government of Canada, from IDRC, from the UK government, from MasterCard. We are in 5 countries, and our plan over the next decade is to expand to 15 centers of excellence. We think this is now the time for AIMS, for Africa, to have more, for young men and women in Africa to have more access to scientific knowledge and training for them to decide and to shape the economic and scientific destiny of the continent.
Thanks, Thierry. But, tell me about Africa and science. We always think of Africa as being a continent where there's a lot of agricultural, activities. But, science, physics, mathematics, where does this land on the continent?
Well, the question you're asking me is not new. We've heard that many times. A couple of years ago, I heard a diplomat, a friend of ours, who was telling us in Cape Town, he said, when it comes to science, it's very seldom to see Africa and science in the same sentence. You can see Africa in football, Africa in music, but you rarely see Africa and science in the same sentence. But AIM has proven people wrong, that you can see Africa and science in the same sentence. Let me tell you this, Jean. I've worked for 22 years in the international development sector and on 5 continents. And I'm here to say and to echo most experts that the traditional development paradigm that Africa, post-independent Africa experienced for 3 decades has failed. It has failed because it was simply a handout. What AIMS is doing these days, and for the past decade, is to allow young women and men across the continent to have access to free, sustainable, impactful scientific knowledge for them to be able to shape the destiny of the continent. That is the reason why we need to invest in science in Africa.
Give me a concrete example. You mentioned the centers in 5 countries. They are providing hands-on experience. Is this part of a university? Is it separated? What is AIMS?
AIMS is not a university. We are actually reinventing the university for the 21st century. That's what we're doing in a unique way. AIMS has been established for Africa to be capable of generating a critical mass of young scientists capable of innovation, of critical thinking, of problem solving in a variety of sectors, including health, information technology, and banking. So what we do is quite unique in the sense that we enable young women and men in students to flourish within the AIMS Centers of Excellence and to think critically about how they can solve Africa's problem. However, we are in partnership with universities in Africa and across the world. So we will not replace universities, but we want to work in partnership with universities without being a faculty department.
No, Thierry, this is fantastic. You were mentioning that there's many young men and women that are going through the AIMS process. I think you have graduated close to 1,000 of them. What are they doing? Give me a concrete example of what is the life of an AIM alumni.
I would have 1,000 concrete examples to give you, but let me stick to one. Jean, that according to a recent McKinsey report, 80% of adults across sub-Saharan Africa are categorized as unbanked people. 80% of adults in Africa cannot have access to mainstream financial services. What does it tell you? It tells you that there are 80% of people who are not part of this global economy. Well, let me tell you that situation is changing. There's a paradigm shift. We have an AIMS alumna whose name is Tabitha Mundia from Kenya. She studied at AIMS South Africa in our Center of Excellence, went back home to Kenya, and Tabitha was able to develop the world's first ever mobile money statistical scorecard. It is a tool that equity bank and microfinance institutions are using now to improve the efficiency and access to financial services. As I speak to you, Tabitha is working at the International Finance Corporation in Washington, and she is part of a team that is working on a project of the bank, of the IFC and the World Bank to end poverty by 2030. It's an incredible achievement. And we can talk about many examples of AIMS students, women and men, trying to discover things. You have Chico Banjo from Nigeria, who won in 2013 the prestigious L'Oreal and UNESCO Prize. Her research is improving safety in the mining industry. I can go on, but that's the raison d'etre of AIMS, and this is why AIMS is striving with we are striving with our partners to make this happen in Africa.
So it's quite fantastic because you have researchers from the field locally in Africa in one of the 42 countries where you have alumni students that have been contributing that are developing tools with modern science and are applying it directly in the field for resolution of problem. Your illustration of transfer of money with mobile phone is telling. Bill Gates this year in his letter of the foundation with Melinda Gates was making specific reference to banking operation on handheld device being a revolution in the developing world, and IDRC has contributed to this in the past, so I think that this is a very good example. Now, I'm going to encourage people that are out there, if there's any. I think there's one. I see Cedric Couteau there that has sent us a question from Cameroon. He's actually one of the AIMS students at the Cameroon Center. And before I ask you this question, I'm going to ask others that are in the cyberspace to send your question at hashtag IDRC Hangout, and we can ask Thierry about your interrogation. So Cedric is asking, given that this is called the Next Einstein Initiative, Thierry, how do you define Einstein for Africa? What will be the behavior of this guy?
That's a good question from Cedric. First of all, at AIMS, Einstein for us, it's more about an achievement, an impact, making change happen than about an individual. Second, Einstein for AIMS is gender neutral. We're not looking for a man. Yeah. So Einstein, how do we define it for Africa? It's what someone like Tabitha Mundia is doing. We want to train a critical mass of young Africans capable of solving Africa's pressing challenges. That's what the Einstein is all about.
Good, and I think that we should be using Einstein in plural rather than in singular, because with 1,000 graduates of the caliber that you have with AIMS, I'm pretty sure down the line there's going to be more than one Einstein.
Definitely.
We have another question from James Kofi at Zamli, and sorry if I mispronounced your name, James. He's asking you, Thierry, what scholarship opportunity can African graduates access for studies? And I put it in the context of your initiative that you're leading.
I would encourage James to go on our website, www.nexteinstein.org, and James will get all the information he needs to be able to apply for at one of our Center of Excellence. There's an incredible amount of resources there that will help James to if he wants to move to one of our centers, to move to an AIMS center. What I want to tell James is that we do offer scholarships because we don't want financial means to be a barrier for young Africans to have access to leading edge science, to world-class research, to advanced training. So this is one thing that we've been very proud of. Which we will continue to do to some extent. So James will find all the information on our website.
I have a question in French from Gary Slater. I'm going to read it in English, Mr. Slater, if you don't mind, because the Hangout is in English today, but we're planning to have one in French in the very short term with someone that is also very interesting. We're waiting for confirmation. It might be in the next days. So, Thierry, AIMS is, this program with hands-on experience. You have Nobel Prize field medalists that are coming to teach. Many of your students already have a master or are planning to go to a master or to a PhD. Some already have their PhD. Do you have a model where it's possible to have joint program between one director at AIMS and one director into a university, what we call the co-tutelle in French?
We'll definitely have that. Gary, I just wanted to tell you that we have co-supervision of research projects by our faculty across the 5 countries and with the partner universities across Africa and around the world. So this is something that we're already doing. And if Gary needs more information, he will get it on our website. We have colleagues in the academic departments across the 5 countries who will be more than happy to provide him with information.
When you are recruiting your student, Thierry, you're using, the social media, the web, but what is the population that you're aiming at? Are they people that are primarily coming from university? Are they coming from technical college? What is the background that you are looking for?
The background we're looking for is threefold. Jean, number one is academic excellence in mathematical sciences. And at AIMS, by mathematical sciences, we mean physics, mathematics, statistics, econometrics, chemistry. B, what we're looking for are people, young people, women and men who have a leadership potential to lead Africa's transformation and to sustain it. And C, what we're also looking for is young people who will be willing to give back to Africa, to contribute to Africa's development, like the alumni we have now. Wherever they're sitting, whatever they are, whatever they're doing, their primary target is on Africa. So those are the 3 things we're looking for when recruiting students from around Africa.
And it's often apply. There are cracks of mathematics. They can write you on board formula that are endless, but at the end of the day they come with application, I think, and that's one of the things that is innovating. How do you link it up with the industry? Is there some partnership that takes place outside of the academia?
Exactly. It's we have a program which is growing very fast these days, a program we call the AIMS Industry Initiative. Basically, Jean, it's a program that is designed to support our core academic and research training program. It's a program through which we expose our young students to a variety of business leaders, entrepreneurs, serial entrepreneurs, to the private sector. And this is one of the ways in which we instill in our students the capacity and the drive to provide solutions for what is missing and what the private sector and the public sectors are struggling on. This is one of the reasons which explain how Tabitha came up with the mobile money tool that is being used by the equity bank and the microfinance institutions. This is one of the ways in which an alumnus like Charles from Congo is now one of Africa's leading software developers on the continent. So it's integral into our model. Our model recognizes that you need fundamental research, but you also need research that is responsive to public and the private sector.
Good. So, let me ask you straightforwardly. It's a tweet that we just received. Would you be partnering with technical colleges for applied research to meet industry need?
That's an option. One of our main strategic orientation these days is to continue to grow our Pan-African and global network of partners. We will be partnering with scientific institutions, academic institutions, government, multilateral. So I would assume that if a technical college wants to partner with us, we're happy to consider and then have further discussion to move forward.
Thank you very much for this. I have another question over here from Kotokong Asong. Since all this work is doing to help Africa, what do you do to make sure that all AIMS alumni will come back to invest in Africa?
I could tell Nkoto right away that 8 out of 10 students we've trained over the past decades are still living in Africa and working in Africa. So that statistic alone responds to his question. So second, we, as part of the AIMS Industry Initiative, we're also building, growing some partnership with private sector institutions to allow our students who don't want to go, who have chosen not to go into academia and do research and be a lecturer, to go into business. So this is something we're doing as an integral part of the AIMS model.
Interesting. Thierry, you've been there since 2011. AIMS has been existing now for 11 years, I believe, or 12 maybe, close to 12.
Yep.
What has been your biggest learning? You know, what was the biggest surprise that you had when you started this job? And then what has been the biggest learning that you had?
My biggest learning, Jean, is about the young people. What is refreshing at AIMS, and I guess if you ever take a chance and leave your office at IDRC and stay at AIMS for a week, you might be sending an email or a letter to your minister and say, I'm resigning, I want to work for AIMS. The young people we are working with at AIMS are just inspiring. And to me, these people are the game changers. You hear these days that Africa is transforming, and I can confirm that Africa is transforming. But the agents of that transformation are young people. And I can relate to them, Jean. The journey that took me to AIMS and to the executive ballroom of AIMS is a long journey. Myself, being a former street kid in West Africa and being able to make it thus far because of training, because of knowledge, when I see the many students that we have been training over the past few years, coming from very challenging background with extraordinary stories, and they are talented. This is something, Jean, that the world is missing out on. Africa is home for the world's greatest untapped pool of talent, and the world needs Africa, and we need these young people, and the time has come to really harness this energy and the potential. So that's what really I've learned from AIMS. That's what impresses me the most. And I will continue to serve this purpose, this mission of AIMS. What surprises me? I think nothing surprises me because they're capable of doing miracles. And the miracle is happening today.
Well, Thierry, you know, I know AIMS is a fantastic journey. It's not only a set of 5 institutions right now. What do you see in the future? You know, what is your biggest dream, your biggest hope for the future with AIMS?
It's an African continent populated with young, well-rounded scientists capable of solving Africa's problem without having to resort to handouts or software imported from wherever, but capable of thinking themselves and generating solutions that not only Africa needs, but the entire world needs. The second thing is how to make good use, Jean, of the young population we have in Africa. You know that by 2050, Africa will be home for 40% of the world's youth. It can go either way. We've got no choice here but to harness that power and energy into the right direction. And science, scientific knowledge and training is very important. The third point I would like to mention here is that we want to continue to build this Pan-African and global network of partnership with the Canadian government, governments around the globe, governments in Africa, multilateral institutions, leading research institutions like yours. This is what we want to continue to do.
Well, you know, as I was part of a journey to Africa and met with your colleagues in South Africa, and also during a state visit of His Excellency the Governor General of Canada, David Johnston, I can say that you are contributing marvelously to this triangle of education, innovation that leads also to better relationship on the human as well as on the commercial side for trade. So this is fantastic. Before I ask you in closing your one or two take-home message, let me give you a few facts again, you in the audience out there. We have, with AIMS, graduated, Thierry and his colleagues have graduated 748 students up to now. 31% of them, 230 are women. They are present in 42 countries. They are coming from 42 countries. They are present in 5 countries currently. They are aspiring to be in 15 countries with AIMS Center in the near future. Almost 3/4 of them have remained in Africa and are pursuing work in academia, in the private sector, as well as in government. And most of them are applying their skill towards objects of research or application or innovation that they have been trained with. It's a success story that runs across the continent. We're lucky to have with us Thierry Zomahoun. Thierry, your final last word for our audience.
I would say, Jean, that Africa's biggest asset is its youth. And the young people of Africa will be the game changers. AIMS alumni are helping, contributing to the transformation of the continent, doing things that no one could ever imagine a decade ago. This is something we're very proud of, that we want to continue to work on, especially if you keep in mind that most of the youth population will come from Africa in 3 decades from now. The second message that I have for people watching us at this moment is that at AIMS, we're working to bring Africa to the leading edge of science. And we want to turn this continent on to becoming the next hub for global science and innovation. We cannot do this by ourselves. We cannot do this alone. So this is, and this calls up for my third message, which is to call on our partners. We want to continue to work with you together, and we want to build new partnership with institutions, scientific institutions, with governments, with multilateral agencies, with national, regional institutions, to continue to make sure that this century is the century of Africa. I want to end by saying AIMS is building the university for the 21st century in Africa.
Thank you very much, Thierry. Our guest was Thierry Zomahoun. He's one of these international innovators that makes a change in the world through his passion, his work, and the one of his colleagues at the African Initiative on Mathematical Sciences. Thank you very much for your participation, Thierry. Thank you everyone that has been listening to us during this last half an hour. It's a first, we hope it's not the last. La prochaine fois, on vous promet une conversation en français avec un autre de ces innovateurs internationaux. Et c'est d'Ottawa, Jean Lebel, President of IDRC, that thank you for your attention. And thank you, Thierry Zomahoun, in Chicago today for this very interesting conversation. Good afternoon, everyone. Good evening or good morning, wherever you are. Merci, au revoir. Thank you.